AI, artificial intelligence. It's magical, but Dr. Talagala is here today and she's going to break down the magic for us. She's going to tell us a secret behind AI. Are you interested about that? Yeah.
I'm going to start by talking about what AI is. So let's talk about what is this. So you guys have all really used this stuff already, and you've said that on the chat that you have Siris, you have Alexas, you like Google better than Alexa, so you have a lot of experience. Now, what AI is at the end of the day is that it is a group of computer programs that help computers do things that are really easy for the rest of us. So as humans, we do so many things every day without even thinking about it. Like we're having a conversation right now, right? We're talking to each other and we've never met before, but we're still able to talk to each other and understand what we're saying. We can look at each other and I can tell if you're smiling, if you're waving, if you're giving a thumbs up. I can see all of that, even though I've never met you before. Now, similarly, we play games every day. We make plans, sometimes to go out to dinner, sometimes on how to do our homework, stuff like that. All of these are things that are really easy for us, but really hard for computers. So AI is a way of helping computers do these kinds of things. So we already talked about how AI is very commonly used in real life. It's used in, for example, if you ever watch Netflix, it's used to recommend movies. If you ever bought anything from a website, it's used to recommend other things for you to buy. But today we are going to focus very heavily on how it works in digital assistants. So can anyone tell me what a digital assistant does? We already know we have them. They're Alexa and Siri and stuff like that. Can you guys put in the chat what they do? They help you with questions. Good, very good. They help you online. Yes.
They give you answers, they give you suggestions, help you with predictions of the weather. They can do things for you.
So the first thing is let's think a little bit about how they do this. Say that we ask it, what time is it? And it comes back saying the time is 7:45 a.m. Have a good morning. Now, how did it actually do all of this? The first thing is that it had to understand your voice. So this is a particular type of AI that is called speech recognition, and it means exactly what it says. You speak, it figures out what you said. So that's the first part that the Alexa has to do is figure out what you said from your voice. Okay, now say that it knows that you said this. So it will be the same as if you typed it in instead of saying it. Now it has to figure out what you're asking. You're asking what time is it? Even though you use the time, you're not asking what time is dinner or what time should I wake up tomorrow morning. You're asking what time is it right now? And so while this is easy for us, we do all of these things in the same instant without even combining. AI actually has to do this explicitly. If you just type this in, it has no idea what you just said. So there's a type of AI called natural language processing that is just trying to understand what the question was. Okay, now say that it understood what the question was. Then it has to figure out the answer. Now, the answer might be simple if you're asking what time is it. It might be more complicated if you asked Alexa, what should I do with my life? Or stuff like that. Those are complicated questions that have complicated answers. So the point is we have to, apply some kind of information to answer the question. Once we figured out what we want our answer to be, then it has to reply with the answer. So now, what are we talking about? We're talking about four things that it did. It had to understand your voice. It had to understand the question that you asked. It has to figure out the answer. Then it has to tell you the answer. These are actually in our brains, we don't even think about this, right? We don't think about your voice relative to your question. Our brain just, gets all of that instantly. And then we create an answer based on everything that we know. And then we reply, with whatever the answer is. For an AI, these are actually four separate things, and they're four separate hard problems for an AI to solve. Because for an AI, a simple thing like, say I'm mumbling, say I have a cold and I don't sound like I usually do. Understanding what I'm saying is now a lot harder for the computer. And it needs special training to be able to learn how to understand people who have colds. So the important thing for you guys to take away is that it does all of these things, but we have to help the computer do this stuff because it's actually quite hard for the computer. How are you hearing me right now? You have a speaker in your computer, right? AIs don't have ears and eardrums like we do. It has a way to capture sound inside the computer and convert the sound into numbers. And then the numbers it's going to try to use to figure out what you said. Very good question. Excellent question.
Why is the AI like human?
Why do you think it's like a human? Do you think it's like a human? That's the first question I would ask. Its brain is very different from a human brain, but yes, you're right. It has a brain. But do you think it's like a human in every way? Think of.
It doesn't have feelings.
It doesn't have feelings. Very good. Yes. So there are many, many things that AIs don't have that humans have. One of them is definitely that it doesn't have feelings. One of the other things is that they don't combine everything they know into one brain like we do. They have separate brains for different things. So your Alexa, for example, couldn't drive your car. But a self-driving car can drive, but it might not be able to answer your questions. Whereas we drive, we answer questions, we make dinner, right? We get into fights, you name it, we do that. Now, next question, how can an AI talk? Very good question. So the way an AI talks is that it figures out the words it wants to say, and then it has pre-recorded voices of actual humans. And then, say it wants to say hello. It has a pre-recorded tape of hello. It will play that tape. So by putting all the words together, it can say anything as long as it knows how to say the word. Yes, how can it turn on lights? Very good. The way this actually usually works, guys, it's a very good question, is that, do you know that the lights turn on because of electricity? Do you know that? So how do we turn on lights? We flip the light switch, right? What happens when we flip the light switch is that your light gets some electricity. Previously, it was sitting there, the electricity was not connected to it. So by flipping the switch, you connect the light to the electricity and the light can light up. Similarly, the AI can flip the switch for you. So the switch may not be it might not be a physical switch on your wall. It might be a switch that the computer is connected to. So the computer can say, turn on light, and the light will turn on. Okay, we are going to try out an AI that likes to help kids do their homework. So behind this web page is an AI that knows a whole bunch of stuff, but you will find it does not know everything. And it can answer questions for you. So I'm going to ask, what are the ingredients in lasagna?
Pasta, cheese, tomato sauce, and meat.
So first I asked, did Harry die? And then it said yes. And then I asked, how did Harry die? And then it said he was killed by a basilisk.
Oh, but he was not killed by a basilisk. So it's clearly wrong. Now, the interesting thing is that the AI knows that you're talking about Harry Potter. He knows that there's a basilisk, but he's wrong about the fact that that Harry was killed by a basilisk.
How do you make barbecue?
Okay.
I need a grill. You need a grill.
Let's see.
Can AI play basketball? And it says yes, but it will be terrible.
All right, so now let's talk a little bit about how this thing works. Now, the first thing is we typed in stuff. So it did not have any need to understand our voice. So it really didn't have to do anything here. But it did have to try to understand the question. So what you guys should know is that this particular AI that we're using is a massive AI that is called GPT-3. It is one of probably the biggest AI in the world right now for understanding language. And it was trained on about a third of the internet. It knows a lot of stuff, but it was trained in 2019. Can anyone think about what that might mean?
It doesn't have enough knowledge.
If you ask it about anything that happened in 2020, it will not know because its brain froze in 2019. It understands questions in many ways, just like Alexa does, but it figures out the answer from what it learned off the internet. AIs learn from information, and the more kinds of information they have, the more they know. And and what they know depends entirely on what they've been taught. And so if there's something that they weren't taught, they won't know it.